This video is sponsored by Ana Luisa. This dress is my attempt to be a cottagecore girly. I don't understand the sleeves. Hello friends, today I will be recommending to you a list of books and movies to consume during spring. My name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. It is lovely to see you here in Springland. Now, I myself am an autumn girly. However, I absolutely love spring. I love the flowers, I love the tea parties, and listen, who doesn't need like a cup of sunshine in their lives? You know what I mean? And I really wanted to attempt to make kind of like a spring recommendations / cottagecore recommendations list. I've seen so many of my amazing friends do the same thing. I will leave a bunch of recommendations down below. Just like a bunch of people are making incredible spring content and it is getting me in the mood to garden. But before we get started, I would like to thank today's sponsor, which is Ana Luisa Jewelry. So what is Ana Luisa? Ana Luisa specializes in crafting high quality pieces of jewelry at very affordable prices. They're also carbon neutral from their packaging to their products. They're a company that really cares about their impact on the planet, which is honestly really important to me as the consumer. I also really love how unique and beautiful their pieces are. I actually got to choose several pieces that I would like to be sent to me, and I am in love with every single piece. A lot of you guys usually ask where I get my rings from, and I'm very excited to say that every single ring that I'm wearing in this video is actually from Ana Luisa, and they are so beautiful. The first ring I have is the Rigel, and I am completely in love with this ring. It looks like it has little stars on it, which I'm obsessed with since I love space so much, and I feel like it looks so elegant, but it's also a really nice bold piece to have. The next ring I picked was the Celine ring, and this ring is so beautiful. I feel like it's kind of the definition of dainty, and when I think of a really classic and elegant design, this is the design that comes to mind. The next ring I chose was the Jax ring, and I love this design so much because I feel like it's a really bold statement while still maintaining that very like dainty and elegant design. And then the final ring that I chose was the Rope Slim design. I feel like this is such a classic design. I feel like it's really bold. It looks kind of edgy, and I really love it. And right now, Ana Luisa is having a sale just in time for Mother's Day. So if you see any pieces that you think your mom would love, I think it's kind of the perfect time to get like a matching set. They are currently having a buy one, get one 40% off, which is such an incredible deal. So if you're shopping for your mom, you can either get her 2 different pieces, or you can actually get something and then match it with her, which I think is such a cute idea because you could both get matching necklaces or matching rings. Also, it's a really great excuse to get yourself something as well. If you are interested, I will go ahead and leave a link down below, along with all of the names for all of the designs that I personally have. So again, all of the links are down below in the description, and I highly recommend checking them out. But I think that's it. So now let's go ahead and get back to the video. Okay, besties, the way I'm gonna kind of break down this list is going to be books first, and then films / TV shows second. Let's go ahead and start with books. So let's go ahead and start off with classics. I was really struggling as to what classic I wanted to put on this list because let's be real, there are so many classics that belong in a cottagecore / spring recommendations list. There's Little Women, A Little Princess, there's The Secret Garden. However, the 2 that I am personally going with are Emma by Jane Austen and also Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this first. I love Alice in Wonderland. I am an Alice in Wonderland stan, and there is nothing that screams cottagecore vibes meets weird whimsy like Alice in Wonderland. If you're unfamiliar with the story, I highly recommend that you pick it up and also consume it as a movie, but this is a book about a little girl named Alice who follows a rabbit down the rabbit hole, and she winds up in a magical world called Wonderland. And as far as spring vibes goes, this is like unmatched. I mean, she's literally talking to flowers in a garden at one point. At another point, she's having a magical tea party in the middle of a beautiful forest. She plays croquet with the Queen of Hearts. If you want the ultimate whimsical adventure that takes place in a beautiful springtime setting, you can't go wrong with this. And I really love this particular edition as well because it is so stunning. The illustrations in it are incredible, and the entire color palette also feels very cottagecore. I mean, Alice in Wonderland is like the queen of puff sleeves. She's the OG. She's the one who started the trend. So we really got to give it to Alice in Wonderland for the first book recommendation. This is heavy. The next book recommendation I have for you is Emma, and I'm gonna actually pair this with the movie as well because I think you should read the book, but I also really think you should watch the movie as it is perfect for the springtime. So Emma is about a girl named Emma, and Emma likes to play matchmaker with her friends. However, while she has great intentions for these matches, they don't always go to plan, and sometimes she ends up making a mess out of people's love lives. This has one of my very favorite romances out of all of Jane Austen's romances. This is kind of like a snarky friends to lovers, and it is so well done. I love Mr. Knightley, I love Emma. It's basically Clueless, but in petticoats. The movie itself, though, is so unbelievably beautiful. The shots are so aesthetic, the acting is phenomenal, but it will absolutely make you want to eat cookies in a garden and dress up in pastels and live your best life. Next up, let's talk about bread. Nothing screams cottagecore girly more than getting your bread baking on. You know what I mean? And for that particular spring fulfillment, we're gonna go ahead and go with the recommendation of Sourdough, or Lois and the Adventures in the Underground Market. It's a book all about Lois, who is really unhappy with her life, and then one day her neighbors who run a bakery ask her to watch their sourdough starter as they have to leave for a while. And if you know anything about sourdough, it's like so incredible. It's one of the only breads, I think it might be the only bread, where it has to have a literal starter to make it, and the starter has live cultures, so you literally have to feed your bread. It's like a pet, and it's also something you can eat, but it doesn't hurt the pet. But basically, Lois has to keep their sourdough starter alive. I really love the concept of kind of like taking it easy, baking bread, and really enjoying more of like the little things in life. I think spring is a great time to kind of like reflect on that. And I feel like this book is really going to romanticize that idea of like a slow paced life. I don't know, it sounds fun. Plus it's about bread, so you know it's gonna be a good time. Next up, let's make things a little bit gothic, and I'm gonna recommend to you Gallant by VE Schwab. This is a new release. It just came out this year, and I've already consumed it, and I loved it. I loved it so much. This is considered, I think, a Gothic fantasy, and it is also YA. Olivia has just received a letter inviting her back to her uncle's manor. And essentially the letter is like, we know that your mother died, but you were welcome to live here in our manor. However, when Olivia arrives, they tell her that no one wrote her that letter. And it's about her exploring the secrets of this Gothic manor that she now calls her home. It reads almost a little bit like a more sinister tale of the secret garden, and I feel like it really works. If you love Gothic fiction and if you love fantasy, you're probably gonna vibe with this book. And next up, I would love to recommend to you one of my very favorite books of all time, and that is Chocolat, and this is by Joanne Harris. This is an older book, but I feel like it is absolutely perfect for the springtime, and also I feel like it fits in that cottagecore vibes moment really well. This is following a girl named Vian, who moves to a quaint small village in France. And while she is there, she opens up a chocolate shop. But the people of this village really don't want to indulge in chocolate because the priest there is actually saying that it's very sinful to give in to all of these indulgences. The book is kind of following Vian with her chocolate shop, and she kind of sprinkles a little bit of magic into the things that she creates. Again, it kind of seems similar to Sourdough in the sense that it's really romanticizing like a slower pace of life, the art of baking, the art of making chocolate, friendship, and of like a very quaint small town life in France. I loved reading this. I felt like it was one of the most charming and most beautiful books ever. It starts off in February, and the book itself progresses into spring and into kind of like all of these beautiful festivals with chocolate, and it is delectable. You will want to consume this. You will also probably eat a lot of chocolate, but when is that ever a bad thing? you know? And next up, let's talk a little bit about fairies. You cannot be a spring girl and not love fairies. And so because of that, we had to add a little bit of fairy magic in our lives with In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire. If you want to get technical, this is more about the Goblin market, but the Goblin market also reminds me of fairies, so I just lumped them together. I hope that's okay. So this is an adult novella, and it is part of a larger novella series, the Wayward Children series, but you can technically read this out of order without reading any of the other books. It's following Lundy, who finds a magical door to another world in a tree. And when she goes through the tree, she finds herself at the Goblin market, where there are all of these magical, wonderful beings, and she makes friends, she learns how to shop at the Goblin market, and it's just a really, really fun time following a child, kind of almost similar to Alice in Wonderland, navigating this really magical Goblin market and all of these wonderful magical people in the story as well. I loved this novella, and I really think it's perfect for spring. Okay, next up, I would like to recommend a YA book called This Poison Heart, and this is by Kalyn Bayron. This is a book that I have not read yet, but I am dying to read this. This is about a girl named Bree, and Bree has a magical gift where she can make flowers grow. My magical talent seems to be killing flowers whenever I try to plant them, so that sucks. So we're following Bree, and Bree actually inherits this very large estate, I think in Upper New York. And when she moves there with her parents, they discover that there is like a poisonous garden along with a lot of generational secrets that she has to uncover. The book itself sounds really dark, but also perfect for spring. I love magic that has to do with gardens and flowers and plants, so I'm really, really excited to read this. The cover is stunning and the story sounds so magical. Next up, I 100% had to recommend The House in the Cerulean Sea, and this is by TJ Klune. I think this would be a great book to read either in the spring or the summer. However, the first time I read it was in April 2 years ago, so I really wanted to recommend it now as well. This book is following Linus, and Linus is a caseworker for magical children. So his job is essentially to try to find magical kids, and he goes to make sure that they are not a danger to themselves or anyone around them. And he is assigned this super secret special case where basically he has to find out if these kids are going to cause the destruction of the world. I think this is perfect for spring because it is so atmospheric. There are so many magical spring-like things on the island. There's a forest, there's a quaint little town surrounding the island, there's a beautiful garden that is tended to by one of the kids who is a gnome. It has such wonderful spring vibes. I could not recommend it more if you are in the mood for a charming and quirky tale. It is adult fantasy. I really don't know anyone who doesn't like it, and in my opinion, it reads like a Studio Ghibli film, so I could not recommend it more. I love it with my whole heart. Give it a go. The next book I'm going to recommend for spring is going to be The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina, and this is by Zoraida Cordova, and this is an adult literary fiction tale, and it is also magical realism. This book is all about a woman named Orquídea Divina and all of her descendants. She tells them all that she is dying, and she wants them to come and collect their inheritance. However, when they get there, things are not exactly as they expected. This is a book that actually follows the descendants and Orquídea Divina through many seasons of life. It's a book that really romanticizes nature. It's a book that really romanticizes family ties. And also it's a book that has so much magic really ingrained in land and in nature itself. I feel like if you're a person who loves the outdoors, if you're a person who loves trees and flowers, I think you're really, really gonna love this book. It touched me so much, and it was definitely a 5 out of 5 stars. I really could not recommend it more. And then finally, the last book recommendation that I have right now for spring is going to be a classic, and that is Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers. This is such a fun book to read around the springtime. I love it so much, and this particular copy is so beautiful because the illustrations are absolutely stunning. So the book itself is very different from the movie, although I highly recommend the movie for spring as well. And it's about a nanny named Mary Poppins who actually shows up in these little children's lives kind of when they really, really need guidance and someone to look after them, and she sprinkles magic in their lives. There are so many wonderful spring scenes. I think they literally jump into pictures. They have tea parties on the roof. There are so many fun things in this story that is whimsical and magical and feels like childhood in the springtime. springtime. I will say I've read the book and I've also seen the movie, and there are quite a few differences, but I highly recommend both. I just think they're so, so good, and I love this book so much. I feel like it's kind of the perfect book to consume around the springtime. Yeah, so I highly, highly recommend Mary Poppins. And now let's go ahead and talk about films and TV shows I highly recommend consuming this spring. First of all, could not recommend Bridgerton more. It literally is the perfect television series for springtime. So season 2 just came out, but I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about season 1. In season 1, we are following Daphne, who is named the Diamond of the Season. And Daphne has one particular goal, and that is to find a husband. However, no one wants to come near her because her brother is scaring them all off. And so as a ploy, she teams up with the Duke and they decide to fake date. It's really great. It's a romance. It is risque, like it is racy. So, I mean, proceed with caution, but I loved it so much. I loved the costumes. I loved the acting. I loved the soundtrack. You will fall in love with the soundtrack. It is so freaking good. And season 2 just released. I have watched it twice. I think it is so incredibly good. Season 2 actually follows her brother Anthony, and his season is kind of like a hate to love with Kate. It is good. If you love Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, you will love season 2. I could not recommend this series enough. Like, I think it's perfect for spring, and it fills me with so much joy. The next movie I highly recommend is Tuck Everlasting. You will see this on so many different people's lists for their cottagecore and spring recommendations, and I think it's because it's kind of peak. I love the book with all of my heart, although it is very different than the movie, and I love the movie with all of my heart as well. The movie and the book are both following Winnie Foster, and Winnie Foster goes behind her house and she decides to run away in her forest. Once she is in her forest, she sees a mysterious and beautiful boy named Jesse who is drinking from a mysterious spring. When she goes forward to take a drink of water, he tells her she can't, and then he kidnaps her. And he later explains that the water will keep her young forever. It's a very, very whimsical tale, but I think the reason it's perfect for this time of year is because the aesthetics of it really romanticize nature so much, but it's also just a little bit magical, and I think it's really, really wonderful. I love it so much. The next movie I highly recommend for spring is going to be Matilda. You know who the real queen of cottagecore is? Miss Honey. Miss Honey is who I want to be when I grow up. I love her so much. So Matilda is about a little girl named Matilda, and Matilda does not fit in with her family because they suck. They're all really, really mean to her. But Matilda finds a lot of comfort through reading, which her family can't understand because they don't like reading. One day she transfers schools and she meets Miss Honey. One day Matilda is invited back to Miss Honey's house, and Miss Honey makes her tea, and they basically bond over the fact that their families were both really mean to them. There are so many different like little elements and plots that are happening. They both kind of have to defeat the evil principal, Mrs. Trunchbull. I don't want to give too much away. If you haven't seen it, I think it's worth watching. It is so cute, it is so iconic, and it is so perfect for spring. The next movie I highly recommend is a Wes Anderson film, and that is Moonrise Kingdom. I love Wes Anderson films, and I love this movie so freaking much. It actually has quite a few allusions to Peter Pan. The movie itself is following two really, really young children who fall in love, and they decide to run away together, and they run away into the forest, but obviously they can't do that, and their parents are very worried, and so they all try to find them. And it's so cute because he's kind of part of something that's similar to like the Boy Scouts basically, and so his whole troop is trying to find him using what they've learned. It's so quirky, it's so whimsical, it's so sweet. It's kind of all about like that very innocent first love, but also it's really great for spring because the entire thing takes place in a forest, and it's so aesthetic. Wes Anderson is just so creative in the way he sets up his shots. Everything is so symmetrical and beautiful to watch. Like visually and cinematically, I feel like he just does such a great job, and I really enjoy his work. And I loved how quirky and whimsical this is. So if you're a person who loves kind of oddball type things, I think you're gonna like this. this, and again, I think it's perfect for spring. And finally, the last movie I would like to recommend to you is The Secret of Moonacre. This is such a whimsical tale. I really wanted to include some type of movie that had something to do with fantasy and whimsy because that stuff makes me so happy, and I love this movie so much. So this is a movie about our main protagonist, whose name is Maria Merriweather, and she is sent to live with her uncle when her mother dies. She discovers this beautiful manor that is now her home called Moonacre. And the longer she's there, the more she discovers all of the secrets of Moonacre. And Moonacre has a lot of magic and whimsy and history behind it, and she has to kind of try to save it eventually. It is so sweet. There are so many beautiful shots of her in the garden, of her in the forest, of her around this gorgeous, whimsical castle. I could not recommend it more for people, especially if you were like a big fan of maybe Stardust, which is also a really great recommendation for spring. I loved this so much, and I think you will too. It's a little bit like The Secret Garden, but with a whole lot more magic. And I loved it. I would also say you cannot go wrong with any Studio Ghibli film if you want to check that out, as well as like anything basically by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is always a win, Sense and Sensibility, all of those things. But yeah, those are my personal recommendations for this list. I think that's it though. Thank you guys so much for watching, and a huge thank you to Ana Luisa. All of the links will be down below. I highly recommend you checking them out, and I am so incredibly grateful that they wanted to work with me. I am so happy with my rings. They have brought me so much joy, and so I highly recommend them. But yeah, I think that's it for now, you guys. If you've made it to this part of the video, please leave me a mushroom emoji. I love all of you so much. Thank you so much for all tuning in. I think you are all wonderful, and until next time, book lovers, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!
Always think of you when spring comes, like it's something in the air at that time. Don't know why. Always dream of you when spring comes. It's like the heat on my skin takes me back to the time met you